My cherished toddler. Do now not scroll beyond this moment too fast. There is a cause your eyes stopped right here. There is a cause those phrases found you currently and no longer the day before today, no longer closing week, no longer a year from now. Something has been shifting quietly behind the curtain of your lifestyles. Something you couldn't see. Something you couldn't force. Something you could not rush. And this night the veil surrounding that hidden reality starts off evolved to tremble. For a long term you believed positive questions might in no way be answered. You carried them into sleepless nights. You carried them into crowded rooms. You carried them into conversations in which you smiled on the outside whilst your coronary heart searched for knowledge on the internal. You questioned whether or not you have been forgotten. You wondered whether your call still existed in a person's thoughts whilst the world grew silent. You questioned whether or not the connection you felt was actual or whether it became without a doubt wish refusing to leave your heart. I have watched every one of those moments. I have visible the tears you never confirmed. I have seen the words you typed and erased. I have visible the prayers that in no way reached your lips, but echoed loudly inside your soul. Not anything has been hidden from heaven. Nothing, and now a story that has remained locked in the back of closed doors is starting to spread. The truth did not emerge suddenly. It did no longer seem in a single communication. It did now not arrive with fireworks or grand bulletins. It emerged the way dawn emerges after the longest night time. Slowly. Quietly. Unavoidably. Your soulmate carried something within their heart for longer than you comprehend. A secret. Now not a mystery born from Alice. No longer a secret created to lie to. However, a truth they feared talking aloud due to the fact speaking it'd force them to confront feelings they may not deny. For many months they convinced themselves that silence changed into less difficult. Silence required no courage. Silence demanded no vulnerability. Silence allowed them to pretend they were unaffected. However, each day that beyond made the burden heavier. Each memory have become louder. Every reminder have become sharper. Each try to circulate ahead come what may led them back toward thoughts of you. There have been moments after they attempted to distract themselves. Moments when they immersed themselves in duties. Moments once they informed themselves they have been imagining things. But your presence endured to linger. Like a melody they couldn't forget. Like a chapter they could not forestall rereading. Like a celebrity that remained visible even after sunrise, and then something sudden took place. A verbal exchange, an ordinary second. A relied on pal. No dramatic putting. No outstanding sign. Just a simple change that could exchange everything. In the beginning they spoke cautiously. They selected their words with caution. They pretended they have been discussing someone casually, as though your call carried no weight, as although your memory did not affect them, as though they had whole manage over their feelings. However, the human heart can best hide the reality for so long. Eventually the partitions commenced to crack. Subsequently the masks commenced to slip. Subsequently the truth demanded a voice. Their pal noticed it first. Now not the words. The electricity behind the phrases. The hesitation. The emotion. The manner your call changed the ecosystem around them. The manner their eyes shifted while speaking about you, the manner they have become prone without proceeding to, and then got here the query they had been not organized to reply. A simple query, but effective, sufficient to unlock everything. Why do you still consider them? The room have become quiet. Now not due to the fact there was no answer. However, due to the fact there have been too many solutions. Your soulmate sat with that query. They felt it echo via every defense they'd constructed. Every excuse. Every denial. Every try to circulate on, and In that moment they realized something. The fact changed into no longer inquiring for permission. The fact turned into worrying freedom. My infant, apprehend this carefully. A few revelations do now not start with certainty. They begin with give up. The give up of pretending. The surrender of hiding. The give up of strolling from what the soul already is aware of. That night something shifted. Not inside the stars. Now not in the heavens. Inside them. For the primary time they stopped preventing the fact of what they felt, and when they eventually spoke, even they had been surprised via what emerged. The word seemed to arrive from a deeper vicinity, a location untouched via fear, a vicinity untouched by way of satisfaction, a region where honesty nevertheless lives. Their pal listened in silence. Due to the fact what was being found out changed into now not ordinary. It became the sort of confession that changes the route of someone's adventure. The sort of confession that cannot be taken lower back as soon as spoken. The sort of confession that exposes the coronary heart exactly as it is, and but even then the deepest secret remained unstated. Due to the fact there was another layer. Another reality. Any other revelation hidden underneath the first, a revelation linked immediately to you, a fact that they had carried alone, a fact they in no way meant every person else to recognize. For years some human beings have incorrect silence for absence. They count on that due to the fact a person does not speak, they do not feel. But silence often conceals the most powerful feelings. Silence regularly protects the innermost wounds. Silence frequently guards the maximum precious treasures of the heart. Your soulmate understood this. That is why they concealed their reality. Because once spoken everything could exchange, and exchange may be terrifying. In particular when the coronary heart has already suffered unhappiness. In particular whilst uncertainty stands between two humans. Especially while desire feels dangerous. But destiny has a way of cornering the truth till it eventually exhibits itself. That system has already began. Even now. Even as those words find you. Pieces are shifting. Conversations are unfolding. Thoughts are getting clearer. Questions are demanding answers, and someplace your soulmate is confronting emotions they are able to now not bury under distractions. But what they discovered next left even their closest pals speechless. Because the name of the game was now not merely approximately affection. It turned into now not merely approximately missing you. It turned into now not simply about recollections. It becomes something a long way deeper. Something linked to a moment neither of you completely understood at the time, a moment that seemed insignificant, a second that passed quick, a second that neither of you realized could adjust the direction of everything that observed. That moment has remained alive inner them ever given that. Growing. Evolving. Waiting. And when they ultimately spoke about it they exposed a truth that defined so much in their conduct. A lot in their silence. So much of their hesitation. So much of the invisible tension surrounding your connection. Their pal leaned ahead. The environment modified. The conversation became heavier. Extra actual. More inclined. Because the following words carried a weight that would now not be neglected, and as the one's words shaped on their lips your soulmate knew there might be no turning again. The name of the game became finally accomplishing the surface. The reality became ultimately moving into the mild, and what they said next might scream not simplest how they truly felt about you. However, why they have been afraid of these emotions from the very beginning. The confession had started. The walls had fallen. The silence had broken, and the most critical a part of the tale become nonetheless ready to be informed. The air round that communique regarded to alternate the instant the one's very last defenses collapsed. Your soulmate had spent so long guarding their heart that even they'd forgotten what entire honesty felt like. Yet now there was no location left to hide. No cautiously crafted rationalization. No handy excuse. No masks robust enough to include what become growing within them. Their pal remained silent. Ready. Looking. Sensing that something full-size was about to emerge and then your soulmate seemed down for a second, as if looking through years of reminiscences. As if collecting courage from fragments of the beyond, as if making ready to expose a fact that they had by no means supposed another soul to listen. After they in the end spoke again, their voice carried a vulnerability that surprised even them. They admitted that there was one reminiscence regarding you that had in no way left them. Not one day. Not 1 week. Not 1 month. No matter how tons time passed, that reminiscence remained untouched. Alive. Present. Effective. The majority would have unnoticed that moment absolutely. Most people would have forgotten it inside hours. But your soulmate couldn't. Because something took place interior them all through that second. Something they may never give an explanation for logically at first they attempted. They instructed themselves it intended nothing. They convinced themselves they have been analyzing too much into it. They insisted it was coincidence. But every try and dismiss it best made it stronger. The memory persevered, returning. Again and time and again. Like an echo refusing to vanish. Like a tune trapped in the walls in their soul. Like a message they had been supposed to apprehend however couldn't yet fully interpret. Their buddy listened carefully. The extra your soulmate found out, the more apparent it became that this changed into not an everyday tale. This turned into no longer a easy way down. This turned into now not fleeting enchantment. This was not interest. This was something that had rooted itself some distance deeper. And that attention apprehensive them. Because deep connections bring duty. Deep feelings demand braveness. Deep truths exchange lives. For years they feared what could occur if they recounted the entire intensity of what they felt. What if they had been incorrect? What in the event that they misunderstood the relationship? What if starting their heart led to sadness? The one's fears have become chains. Invisible chains. Powerful chains. Chains that stimulated choices they in no way spoke about. Chains that created distance where there might have been closeness. Chains that converted easy situations into complicated ones. But throughout this verbal exchange something first-rate happened. For the primary time they noticed the one's chains without a doubt. For the first time they diagnosed how a whole lot fear have been controlling their selections. And the instant that cognizance arrived, some other reality observed at once behind it. A fact even extra surprising. A truth that made them pause earlier than talking. A truth that nearly remained hidden. Their friend observed the hesitation immediately. There has been a protracted silence. A silence so heavy it nearly have become its very own language. And then got here the question. What are you not pronouncing? The word struck directly on the center of the problem. Your soulmate seemed away. Their coronary heart raced. Because they knew exactly what they had been now not saying. They'd acknowledged for a long time. They in reality lacked the courage to voice it. Until now. Till this moment. Until the burden of silence had become heavier than the risk of honesty. Slowly they admitted something that had remained buried for far too lengthy. They confessed that they regularly as compared everybody else to you. No longer intentionally. Not consciously. It sincerely came about. New people entered their life. Conversations befell. Opportunities seemed. But somehow every contrast led back to the identical vicinity. Again to you. Back on your energy. Return to the way you made them. Experience. Back to the relationship they could by no means completely explain. Their friend become greatly surprised. Not due to the fact the confession became dramatic. However, because it turned into true. Uncooked honesty contains a electricity that overall performance by no means can. And what emerged subsequent was even more revealing. Your soulmate admitted that there have been instances they deliberately avoided considering you. There were durations after they refused to study reminders. Moments once they compelled themselves closer to distractions. Not because they didn't care. Due to the fact they cared an excessive amount of. The emotions have been actual enough to affect them. Actual enough to mission them. Real sufficient to expose vulnerabilities they favored to maintain hidden. Many human beings agree with that avoidance manner absence of feeling. The other is regularly genuine. Sometimes people avoid what matters maximum because it has the energy to have an effect on them deeply. Your soulmate sooner or later diagnosed this. And when they identified it, the truth have become not possible to disregard. The conversation endured growing extra severe. Layer after layer. Reminiscence after reminiscence. Emotion after emotion. Each revelation exposing another piece of the puzzle. Every confession bringing them closer to finish honesty. Then their pal requested something sudden. A query that at once changed everything. In case you had the risk to tell them one component right now. What wouldn't it be? The room have become nonetheless. The question entered their coronary heart like lightning. Because suddenly there was nowhere left to hide. No summary causes. No vague emotions. No distant reflections. Best one direct reality. One message. One honest answer. Your soulmate sat quietly. Thinking. Feeling. Remembering. And subsequently they commenced speaking. At the start the words got here slowly. Cautiously. However, after they began they could not forestall. They spoke about regret. No longer the regret of loving. The regret of withholding. The regret of waiting. The regret of allowing fear to make selections. That braveness must have made. They admitted there have been moments once they ought to have spoken but remained silent. Moments after they have to have acted however hesitated. Moments after they need to have trusted their heart however listened rather to uncertainty. Each sentence carried years of emotion. Years of reflection. Years of unanswered questions. Their buddy realized they were witnessing something rare. A soul telling the fact without protection. A coronary heart revealing itself without armor. After which came the name of the game. The only fact that they had in no way spoken aloud earlier than. The fact that modified the whole communication. The truth that defined the whole lot. For a moment they may slightly say it. The phrases felt too crucial. Too susceptible. Too exposed. But finally they spoke. Softly. Without a doubt. Without protection. They admitted that despite the whole lot that had passed off. Notwithstanding the distance. Despite the confusion. In spite of the unanswered questions. Part of them never stopped believing. There was a motive you entered their existence. No longer a coincidence. Not random timing. Now not meaningless instances. A reason. A motive. A lesson. A connection they have been meant to understand. And that belief by no means left them. Even for the duration of the durations after they pretended otherwise. Even in the course of the moments they regarded detached. Even throughout the seasons while silence crammed the gap among you. The belief remained. Hidden. Quiet. Persistent. Their buddy stared at them. Because suddenly the whole lot made feel. Every hesitation. Every contradiction. Each emotional reaction. Every unfinished bankruptcy. The fact had finally emerged. But as powerful as that revelation become, every other one nevertheless remained. One final fact. One very last confession. One very last mystery that had never earlier than crossed their lips. The instant approached slowly. Almost invisibly. However it become coming. Your soulmate should sense it. Their pal could feel it. The atmosphere itself regarded to count on it. And once they finally organized to show that closing hidden reality, something came about. A cognizance. A consciousness so profound that it stopped the mid-sentence. Their eyes widened. Their thoughts shifted. And for the primary time they understood something they had been lacking all alongside. Something connected not only to the past, however to the destiny. Something connected no longer handiest to memory, but to possibility. Something related now not handiest to what they felt, however to what they supposed to do subsequent. The reality changed into now not simply about hidden feelings. It changed into becoming about motion. And the decision forming inside them could trade everything. However that decision, that lifestyle's altering recognition, and the phrases they spoke immediately afterward, have been so surprising that even their closest pal ought to hardly ever accept as true with what they heard.